Hi, I am TD McRoy. This is Paranormal Diagnostic. Let's get started. Okay, welcome. This image here is from my book, 33 Miles from Washington. I thought tonight's show, that is the fifth show in our YouTube channel, Paranormal Diagnostic, this would be a good way to start. After 4 previous shows and a couple bonus, we've had opportunity to look at a lot of different images. Some people consider those images to be paranormal. Some consider them to be proof of the existence of an afterlife. Some prove that we live in a world that's multi-dimensional. Some flat out just say that they're just ghosts, miserable, living among us. And like I've always said, there's no way CPI investigation can prove any of those. What we can prove is that we have an ability based on a program to show you images. And people react to those images that they have seen very differently. Some people look at them from a more scientific standpoint. Some of them look at it from just pure entertainment, right? I mean, honestly, that's what all of this is, and that's what it's about. Even though our research started out many years ago to not necessarily change science, but actually kind of get science on the right track as it related to the supernatural and the study of quantum mechanics. We are hoping to prove that there was a midpoint between the atomic world that we understand of things really large and the subatomic world. No one's ever really proved that there's anything in between. Even though things in the subatomic world act very similar to what we see in the atomic world. But what we were striving to do was to prove that there was a mid-atomic world, a world that we couldn't see based on our vision. And we basically just wanted to prove our eyes are crap. And pretty much they are. I mean, by the time you turn 50, for a lot of people, they start acting up. They're subject to many types of diseases, glaucoma, cataracts. So there's just a lot that goes on. So we can only see a very short distance with them, for one. Let's say we can see, on a clear day, we can see up to 2 miles, where you can actually make out an object. But at the same time, we can stand on the earth and we can look up at the sky, out into the cosmos, and we can barely see anything. And then at the same time, we can stand upon the earth and look down and we can't see bacteria. But yet all of that is within us. We can reach down and touch bacteria. We just can't see it. So we need microscopes to be able to do that. And to see way out, we needed telescopes. So basically our eyes are just junk. But, tonight I wanted to start with this image because it's one of the more interesting ones that I have in my book. And it's probably one of my favorites because I just don't understand it. If you look at the image, the crack on the left side of the cabin, the larger image that's in the square is just a close-up of that. And if you look at it, it appears to be 4 separate faces. One large looking at the top right corner, gazing out, and then 3 smaller ones. There's actually four smaller ones, but there's one in between the very last one and then what would look to be the second in line. You can see it's a little darker. So that is a total of five separate faces looking out. The Iroquois Technology hit at that location. So we're only guessing that it's hitting on those five faces. They don't look like people that were alive at the time the photograph was taking place. As far as we could tell, this cabin has always been nailed shut. I've never even seen any locks on the exterior of it. So I don't even know if you could get in there. But, you know, people who want to get into any type of residence that sits alone, and this is an abandoned cabin, can figure out ways to do so. Does that explain that's what we're looking at? Are we looking at, five people that just because from the location where the photograph was taken just appear that way? Are we looking at someone with masks on? We don't think so. In broad daylight, it's very interesting that the images came out the way they did. So when I look at this, and I may even wrote about it in the book, and think about how terrifying it would be to spend the night all by yourself in that cabin in the basement with nothing more than a sleeping bag and a flashlight. No cell phone, no matches, sleeping bag, the clothes on your back, and wondering how long the average human could stay, knowing that this picture exists, believing or considering that the images that we see peering out from the bottom of that cabin are real, meaning that they are in there, whatever they are. They were in there that day. And if you followed any of our research, and you're not going to find a lot of explanation from the movies and the TV appearances that we've done, but we talk about the difference between entities that live within a structure and entities that live outside of a structure. When we go back and we look at the majority of the people and animals that we see in nature, generally they're made up of babies from the age of birth upward. Women, all different ages, all different nationalities. Native Americans filled out there. Plenty of slaves, or people who look like they once were slaves at the time of their death. And they seem happy. They don't seem particularly happy when their locations are invaded by people who may not be out there for the right reasons. But even the best people living will do whatever they can to protect their properties. They can be a nice person. It could be a nice little old lady at 86 years old living up on a farm that bakes cakes for the Mayfair every year and attends church every Sunday. But it doesn't mean if you come on her property and you're there doing something that you shouldn't be doing, that she won't grab a shotgun and come out there and run you off. And that's what we see when we see nature. And that's kind of what we try to cover here. But we think about fear. And what is fear? And what does fear say about who we are? We feel that fear is something that tells us that we may be in danger. We also feel that fear is one of the most honest emotions you can have. Out of all the emotions, we think fear is one of the most honest. People have different level of fear or things that they fear greater than others, but whatever scares you or frightens you the most, whenever those emotions come out, those are the most honest emotions of who you are as a person. We know that people believe and tell others that they don't believe in the supernatural. They also tell others that they don't believe in the possibility of ghosts or anything that could touch them, talk to them, grab them. And that's okay. But what we have found is that it doesn't matter what you tell others about who you want them to believe you are when it comes to something like this. It doesn't matter. You can tell people anything. What would matter if I could drive you to this cabin at 8 o'clock at night where there's no full moon in the sky, where there's nothing but pitch blackness out. Now, I don't know if a lot of people and everyone have ever been in pitch darkness. I mean, outside where it's so dark, it feels like you're walking around in a closet in a basement without any windows in the middle of the night. But you're outside and you can't see your vehicle that's right in front of you until at least maybe your eyes can adjust a little bit. It's incredible. I've only had it happen to me one time, and I was in, I think it was called Bear Mountain, Pennsylvania. It was an overcast night. I was, a few years out of high school and went to a friend's cabin. And we had gotten there, maybe in the afternoon. The sun was still up, maybe going down. And we had gone into the cabin. I think probably the first time I've ever been in a cabin. And we had turned on all the lights and we're in there. And I had to go out to my car to get something. And the cabin had a window, but it had curtains on the window. So I remember walking out, opening the screen door, standing on the porch, and the door shut behind me. And I could see nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. My car literally was about 15 paces directly in front of me, and I could not see it. I could not believe that I was outside. Now, that's darkness. And that's how this cabin would be on the outside at night. So you can imagine breaking in a back door or climbing through a window, giving you your flashlight, and you making your way down to that cellar. And laying your sleeping bag out and turn your little light on. And you hear the engine of my car driving off in the distance. Knowing that it's only 8 o'clock at night, I'm not going to be back until the sun comes up. So 6:40, 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever. It's not going to matter. Because at this point, as soon as you hear me leave, if you weren't even already scared of making your way down with nothing but a flashlight, praying that those batteries in that flashlight do not burn out. By the time you got down in your sleeping bag and it got quiet, every little thing that you ever heard about a ghost hunting show would start flooding back to you, knowing that entities have the ability to drain batteries. It doesn't matter if you ever believed in all that stuff, but you would believe it then. Or at least your mind would start convincing you that it might just be possible. Because fear once it sets in a situation like I am describing, there's nothing you can do it because now you are a part of that environment that we've been talking about here for the last 4 weeks. Your mind is going to start believing it so. There's nothing you can do to control it. Once you're in an active environment like that came from this location, we have been past here at night and see light anomalies like we've never seen before. So just imagine you being in that basement all by yourself, waiting for anything either to touch you, to walk by, to flash. I mean, how long can you keep your flashlight on? Will your flashlight make it all night? Will it only make it for an hour or two? You know, if you can't get out, let's say you're padlocked in there and there was nothing you could do until morning. You know, do you conserve your flashlight or do you keep it on the whole time and just pray that it makes it through? So it's always interesting to me when people want to flat out deny any of this being possible. So people who are tuning in, just, give those who make the claim of seeing these things as not crazy people. Just know that fear is real. It's something that you can't control if you're placed in the right environment. We're going to move on. We have TFIL again, and I love working with these guys. I mean, or I should say, I love working with these guys' footage. So far, they capture the best footage out of anyone I've worked with so far. And not really sure why. I'm not sure why some people seem to catch better footage than others. They can go to the same place. It could be an exchange in the particles. Maybe these guys are more in tune with their environment than a lot of people who have been to the same location. But tonight they're at an abandoned hospital in Texas called Yorktown. I never heard of it, but no surprise. I'm not a ghost hunter, so a lot of these places that these guys and girls are going to, I've never heard of them. But they got a whole cast of characters here tonight, and they're going to go in here and do an investigation. So I don't know exactly where they're standing. I don't know if they're standing like in front of the hospital or at another location. I'm only guessing they're standing in the front, and they walk around to the back to get into the hospital. But immediately, before these guys even get inside this place, the Iroquois Technology is already getting hits. So let me show you the first location where we got a hit. Right here, there's a gate, and they walk around to the left, and right here, before this guy, I think his name's Jay, enters, we get a hit. Well, if you look directly in front of him, there's something that looks to be a thespian. I'm not sure. It looks like he's wearing maybe a cape because it's very dark there. He's got a white face that it looks like it was almost painted with makeup, and he's wearing a top hat. And what's interesting, you will see, let me bring a closer image up. Right here, you will see a little red. That red is from the young lady that is investigating with them tonight. I don't know her name. Her name might be something with the M, Melissa or something like that. I end up missing it when I actually watched it. I think they did say it a few times. But when you go back to look at the link and you come to this part, this is right in the beginning when they start. As soon as they turn in and you see that little red come up, that's where you need to stop the film because this guy shows up. I mean, we did use the dynamic filtration filter on him, so we did bring him out a little bit. But you can see him in the original film, and whenever that happens, one, that makes us a lot happier because, as you know, some of these, when they're invisible to the naked eye, can take up to 2 hours for the program to pull out the shape of the images. And so we kind of like it when they're in what we call generation two of the standard model, where they're semi-transparent. And from there, it doesn't take long, maybe about 15 minutes with the dynamic filtration to pull that image out. So that was the first one that we hit immediately. Well, what was interesting that this gentleman looked like he's actually staring at Jay, and most likely he probably is, but we didn't know why in the beginning. But it appears that this he might be an actor. Like I said, I just call him a thespian. Maybe staring so intently at Jay is because he seems to have a would-be girlfriend that has come damn near face to face with the gentleman walking in. And so let me pull her up real quick. And you can see her right there. And that's her hair, and her face is just peering over his left shoulder. Let's see if I can get a close up of it. And you can see she was no spring chicken, unless she had a definite hard life out there. It was interesting. If you look at her right cheek, that would be on the left side of us. She looks like she almost has like maybe a thorn or something, like a very, very large thorn sticking out of her cheek. I don't know. Maybe that was decorative. Maybe she's very ancient, but she's definitely there. And so it explains why the thespian is actually looking at Jay. Not looking at Jay, is probably looking at her. And she, just like the rest of them, are probably trying to keep them out of there. Because once again, if there's places where we show up where we really don't belong, nature, and these are all out in nature, and they're generally would be harmless, but at the same time, they don't want you there just for no reason. And so they're going to try to keep you out of there. So moving on, as soon as they turn in and they're actually even with the fence, you get to see this thing coming through the fence. Now, to us, it looks like a Native American spirit. Generally, the first reason why we believe, and we're pretty sure it's probably Native American spirit, because for some reason, only Native American spirits that we have seen so far can make their heads really large. We don't know how they do that, but they're able to do that. And there was an artist years ago, probably some like 8 years ago, that I saw that all of her paintings were done out in nature, and she made the Native American heads really large. Like she would take gigantic boulders in the painting, and she would paint the boulders, and hidden on the faces of the boulders would be these enormous Native American faces. So I actually reached out to her and asked her why did she paint uh, the Native American head so large. She didn't really have an excuse why she did it. She just said that's just the way she decided to paint them. And we were so interested in that because that's what we were discovering in nature. There's a spirit that we call a hexahedron spirit. It's a spirit that houses six Native American heads, all combined and commingling in the same place at the same time. Um, in science, there's something called a Plausi's exclusion principle. And that principle basically states no two particles can exist in the same place at the same time. What that means in our third dimension is if you take any two particles or anything that's made up of particles, that everything is in our dimension, that if you have a particle on the right and a particle on the left and you put them together and you try to make them share the exact same space, it's impossible. It doesn't work in our third dimension. However, CPI has discovered that in the fourth dimension, or at least these fourth dimensional beings have the ability to occupy the exact same place, the exact same space at the exact same time. And so once again, that's why we're positive that we're dealing with fourth dimensional beings instead of third dimensional beings, because that would be completely impossible in our existence. However, we do talk about this Plausi's exclusion principle in our book 33 Miles from Washington, when we talk about the subatomic googolplex singularity event that takes place. We talk about the electron and the proton that get together, and they try to occupy the same place at the same time. And what happens, because of gravity is no longer restrained, it pushes these two particles together as the human body starts to die off. And as the human body starts to die off, fusion starts between these two particles. And that's when it starts kicking out these neutrons and neutrinos. And then the neutrons are heavier particles, they kind of stay behind, but the neutrinos are lighter. And so what happens, we believe something that resembles a wormhole or a black hole at the time of our death opens up, and it pulls the neutron, not the neutron particles, but the neutrino particles through, and it actually goes through a tunnel and imprints it on this fourth dimension. And so the Iroquois technology is actually picking up those neutrino particles that have been pulled through from the third dimension into the fourth dimension and imprinted on that dimension. And now, since it's in the fourth dimension, it's they're casting what we call a stereographic projection back onto a third dimensional realm where the Iroquois technology picks it up. So if all of that makes sense, you're okay. Um, so back to the Native American spirits. If that was a human spirit, meaning a human spirit, Native Americans are human as well. But if it was just an ordinary spirit other than a Native American spirit, the head wouldn't be that large. So we're almost positive through our 15 years of research that that is a Native American spirit that is at that gate coming through. And he doesn't look happy. His left eye looks pretty normal, but his right eye does not. That's amazing. And let's move on. So they finally get out of the weeds and they get up to the front door. And so they're out there talking about it, and they're talking about how they don't want to go in. Of course, Elton, he wants to go in everywhere. Everyone else, either they're scared or they act scared. Either way, they don't want to go in. So the Iroquois technology gets a hit. Of course it does. Because it's been getting a hit from the moment they move from that initial spot. So the hit that it gets is on the left side of this door. And right back there, you can see what looks like a face, and there's a larger version of that face. So before they even go in there, these things are already waiting for them. Amazing. So they finally get inside. They're walking down a hallway. Iroquois technology gets another hit. Back here, right there in that circle, is where the Iroquois technology got a hit. So, anyways, we zoom in. We apply the dynamic filtration, and this is what we get. So there's three people there actually. You can see the little boy that looks like he has a white stripe across his shirt. Looks like he's wearing a sweater. Then you have the lady, and then if you look at her waist, someone is actually backed up against the wall right at her waistline. There's another person. And once again, we always talk about how all these entities move in three. Um, Generally, if you can get them in the right position, you'll always see. We've never seen them move in any less than three. So either they move in threes, or if you see one person, you will be able to pick two other people that are actually part of making up them. In those cases, it seems like one person is actually kind of like controlling the other two. When they move in threes, I think they're just supporting each other. We talked about beta decay and why we think they need to support each other to basically continue existing, at least in a third dimensional realm where they're showing this stereographic projection that we're actually able to see. So they move on from there, and they're walking around, and they get to this room that has this these drawers over there, and Corey, he's hearing noises the whole time that he's out there, and so he thinks he hears something coming from over there, from those. I don't know if it's a chest of drawers or what. I don't know if you ever see them open up, but it just looks like a clothing drawer. And so anyway, so they end up going over there, he's all cautious about it. And so they have this red filter on. I think it might be the gentleman that's with them. His name is Evan, I think. He has this special device that he's using, and I think that's where that's coming from this time. Iroquois Technology is not a fan of that. It can still hit, but you can never really see what they actually look like as nearly as clearly because you take all the actual natural color away from them. So luckily they turn it off, and Corey is pointing out a little paw, like from a puppy paw thing to her, and he's trying to question why would a puppy be in here and up there. I mean, who knows? It could be a raccoon paw. They all kind of look the same. And but right here, the Iroquois Technology actually gets a hit. We did not see that coming. It didn't seem like much was going on. We're kind of getting used to when we look at these videos to kind of get a better idea where we think it's going to get a hit when we watch it the first time. So we were actually kind of shocked that we got a hit here. So we end up zooming in and using the dynamic filtration, and sure enough, there's someone that's peeking around that corner. That's pretty amazing right there. So once again, Iroquois Technology is right on the ball. So they're still in that room and they're starting to go through the drawers. And what's interesting, if you look over to the right of her shoulder, there is, I don't think that's a mirror. I think they may have, because you don't see their reflection in that mirror. I think that might be glass there, and that might be a divided room. This was a hospital, so sometimes if you're in one room or one ward, like a waiting room or something, and there will be a glass area, and you can look out. And I think that's what we're looking at here. So I don't think that's a mirror, but I think that is a divided room with glass. And so, anyways, I can't show you the video, but when the cameraman and everyone's moving around, we see what we think are a pair of boots that show up that are not there a frame or two before. It just appears. And so right there is a pair of boots. And listen, we looked at the movie right before we show you these boots, they're not there. And right after this, they're not there either. So this takes us back to Winchester House. Because remember, I said if you see a pair of boots in the corner, the boots are not just, flying around there. I mean, someone who once lived are wearing those boots. You just can't see them. For some reason, why are boots displayed? We have no idea. There's so much about this stuff clearly that we don't know. But these boots show up. So we do what we do here. So we zoom in and we go, yep, that's a pair of boots. And what's interesting is you can see um, there appears to be a large pilgrim style buckle on it. So here's another look at it. And so we do an outline for you. And that's where the buckle is. Well, what's interesting, we went back and we looked for a boot that style. And one thing that's great about the Iroquois Technology that so far we have been 100% accurate to American history. So, meaning that if we saw something in our photograph and we could search it and we go back into American history, we can find that item, that person, that shirt, or whatever it is, and it has been 100% accurate. Sometimes we see something like this and we just can't locate it. We don't know, where it came from because you can imagine, how old could this possibly be? I mean, we have no idea. So we search and we search. We searched all the American wars from the Revolutionary War and French and Indian War, and no one. Well, a lot of people wore this style boots, but we could not find the style boots with that buckle on it. The only place we could find that buckle was from when the Pilgrims came over here, but they had them on their shoes. They didn't have them on their boots. Now, could it be possible that someone who had a pair of boots from, like, let's say, the medieval periods that was considered the Middle Ages, that went from the 5th to the 15th century, take a buckle from a shoe and place it on a boot, that was maybe a sailor, maybe after the fall of the Roman Empire. I mean, sure, I mean, that was possible. And you got to remember, once the Roman Empire fell, that was what they considered like the age of discovery, right? So that's like European history, and that's when like all the exploration begun for the Europeans, and what do they call it? Globalization started. So you had like Christopher Columbus, you had Magellan, and you had Francisco Pizarro or whatever, something like that his name was. So you had all those great explorers that happened, right after the fall of the Roman Empire. So you had people that were traveling all over the planet. Some were charted, some were documented, some weren't. So who knows, who's living in that place and whose boot that is. But that's definitely a boot. Fascinating. Moving on. So, in the same glass, we don't see their reflection. It's hard to tell, but we believe that we can see enough of it in the video to know that what we're seeing in front of us is not their reflection. Because remember, you have the young lady, and then you have Corey. And if an entity is making a reflection, it will always try to mimic the person's moves. That's number one. Number two, it will always try to mimic the individual's moves if they know they're on camera. Because this takes us back to our kaleidoscope of vision. If you don't know what kaleidoscope of vision is, just go back and look at one of our earlier movies and, or I'm sorry, one of our earlier Friday night shows, and we talk about it in there. Um, and they will mimic our movements based on them seeing their image in our electronic devices that happens to be recording them. So here, what we think we're seeing is like a little skirt and some high calf socks that come up, and then her body disappears. And right, and what this glare is, that's a flashlight that one of the guys are holding, and it's kind of facing towards the camera, and the camera's actually looking back into the glass into that next room. So you can actually pick up her eyes a little bit, and so we end up applying the dynamic filtration. I had a hard time because of the glare, but we did get a little bit of her upper body to come out, and this is kind of as much as we could get it clear. So she looks a little bit more modern, but maybe not. I mean, is it skirt that she's wearing? Is that more of a kilt? Is she hanging out with the medieval person who was wearing those boots that we couldn't identify? And of course, if anyone's ever seen those type of boots that are not from a costume shop, because we know that they kind of make them today, but some original photograph, of an ancient medieval style, Renaissance style boot, please, let us know. And if you have a picture, that would be even better for us. But so, anyways, that's what we think we're seeing there in that glass. So basically, one frame ago, you had this boot that's now gone because it's in the same place that her knees are now. So you have this what we think is like a teenage girl there, and then we're going to show you a little bit of a video that we try never to do. But guys, I just think that we want to have respect for everyone's video that we're using on here. We only want to use Iroquois Technology to hit on the what we consider the Quinn in a lot of cases, and just show you that, and so we can link it, and then you can go back to their channel and watch the videos, and they can get all the views. But sometimes we're just going to hit on stuff where we're just going to have to show you a little bit of the video, and like I said, we're never going to show any more than 10 seconds of it, but it's important. So now, if you look at this leg, it's no more two legs together like she was before with the little skirt. It still looks like a skirt, but if you look closely, you'll see that that actual leg of that person is now setting down. Because when it gets to where the knee area is, before it gets to where what looks to used to be the skirt, it's actually bent, and someone's seated in a chair. And the socks still go up right below the knee. But I think they're trying to mimic Corey, who's still over at that chest looking in those drawers over there. But what's interesting is when I play this video, when this gentleman, God, I can't even think of his name, when he actually starts to move, um, because he is actually, or the camera's actually picking it up, when he starts to move left or right, that shadow, let's just call it, will start to move as well. Because why? Once again, it goes back to kaleidoscope of vision. If they can see themselves from our perspective through our electronic devices and they know they're being filmed, they're going to try to mimic whoever's move is closer to that camera. So, we wouldn't notice it. We would look at a shadow, we happen to capture a glimpse of it and go, oh, that just must be me moving in the glass and not them. But that's not his leg, and that's not the other two's leg as well. We think it's mimicking their legs at this point because the lady is no more. I don't see her anymore. And the Iroquois technology only hit on the leg. It didn't hit on anything above that. So let me play a little bit of this, and this is just pretty cool because you can actually see through the entire leg the whole time. That's crazy. That is crazy. Amazing. Amazing. So yeah, so you can see right there, um, that where the sock stops and where the leg goes up and then the leg's actually bent. And then I don't know what's going on up there. I don't know what these images are. That's something that's in the reflection. But like I said, we lose a lot of quality when we upload this to YouTube. But there's a certain moment where you can actually see the socks come up, and you can actually look down inside the leg and see the outer edge, the part of the sock that's furthest away from you, from the inside for a split second. That's I don't know if that's neat or creepy. I don't know. Maybe it's both. So, anyways, moving on. So now they've already been upstairs, and really, there's been so much activity in this hospital. Like I said, we've never seen so much activity. We got to a point where we didn't even want to record anymore, or run the Iroquois technology through anything anymore because it kept getting hits. Like every 10 steps that they went, it would get a hit in a new location, and most of it was invisible. So that means we would have had to run the Iroquois technology. I don't know. I keep saying Iroquois technology. We would have had to run the dynamic filtration through it. So we end up just skipping because they said they were going down to the basement. So who knows what we're missing? But anyway, so they get down to the basement, and Corey is walking through. And as soon as he gets down there, he starts complaining about feeling really hot. Him and the other guy. So they continue walking around, and he notices that wall has a bow in it, meaning that it's like the pressure from the upper floor is actually bowing the wall down. And so he tells Eldon, he's like, man, this wall doesn't look safe. We could be in danger of a collapse. Maybe we shouldn't be down here. And Eldon says, yeah, you're right. So what we'll do, or what they did, is end up going down to the end of the hallway and just finishing up. And so they're getting ready to get out of there. So this very next image, the Iroquois technology hits. And it's interesting because it hits right on that wall, but right on that arm. That's never a good thing because, listen, the Iroquois technology usually hits on a cluster, and it's usually like a head or face or something, right? You agree? I mean, most of the things that it hits on is usually from like the waist up, or or usually the head is almost always there. Um, Very seldom will we just hit on like an extremity. Sometimes, like in the images we just saw, we can't see the rest of the body, but we know it's there. In this case, we would be able to see the rest of that figure, but we're not. And all we're seeing is an arm. And in our experience, that's a bad thing. If you go back to the movie A Haunting on Finn Road, we talk about a quantum leap that occurs in that movie, where the old man that's in a parlor is sitting on the stairs that's across from the main doorway. And when Steve goes to come in the door, he's filming from the outside. He reaches for the doorknob. He thinks it's on the right. That doorknob is actually on the left. And when he turns to go back to the left where the doorknob is, someone opens the door. Well, the Iroquois Technology hits on the old man that's across the room and hits on his hand that is actually opening the door from across the room. But it's not like his arm is elongated. It's actually, he's in two places at one time. So we call that a quantum leap. So since then, we've learned a lot. That was 2 years ago. Whenever we see just an arm and the Iroquois Technology hits on it, and when we apply the dynamic filtration, nothing comes up but that arm, that means that a quantum leap is occurring. That means that somewhere in that hallway, there's an entity that is trying to make contact with something like that door or someone. So what that means to us is that that entity is trying to make contact with somebody else or some person in that group. And that's never a good thing. That's when they're trying to touch you. When they're putting all their energy just into their arm. But because of the kaleidoscope of vision, because they are fourth dimensional beings casting a stereographic projection on the third dimensional realm, they need to be in another location to be able to touch you. If these entities in this basement are comfortable with the layout of this basement, they could set in a certain place, wait for you to get to that certain spot, and know where you are and able to reach out. That would be incredible. And that's what happens. So Corey, who's already feeling hot, continues to walk, and he gets to a spot right after that, and he doubles over in pain. He doubles over in pain because his back is killing him, he says. So while we're watching that, after finding that arm, we're just like, it touched him. Somehow, the entities in there have been there so long and are so intelligent that they know how to pinpoint him. He was basically leading the pack most of the time. And they're just like, you know, like a dog would be. You know, if a dog sees the first person that comes through their gate, they're going to try to attack them. And then a lot of times that dog will just focus on that one person. You know, sometimes you see lions do it. You know, a lion tamer comes in, the lion gets pissed and starts to attack the lion tamer. But it doesn't matter how many other lion tamers come in, they cannot break the attention away from that initial lion tamer and who they want to get or who they want to teach a lesson. This happens the same way as well in this environment. So he was leading the pack. So he became the target. And once he became the target, until they get you in this situation, you will remain the target. And they get him. And I can tell you right now, this is the first time that we've ever seen or captured what we're getting ready to show you. So he doubles over in pain, so his friends get concerned about him. So they start looking at him, flashing him with flashlights. Let's look at your shirt, and they start discovering scratches on his back. And they discover more scratches, and more scratches, and more scratches. It's just like everywhere. So for us, we're like, okay, let's regroup. Let's go back. Let's make a small section of where this incident took place, and let's run that through the Iroquois Technology again, and let's run everything through the dynamic filtration, and let's see if we, for the first time, can actually capture his attack going on. Now, you don't have to convince us because we already saw the arm, and we're just like, so we already know that that arm had something to do with it. So I'm going to show you these images. I never want to scare anyone. I want to educate people. So I'll just tell you right now, if you want to stop this and come back maybe in the morning with the sun up and watch it, we would be okay with that. It's not that this is terrifying. This is more psychologically chilling, in my opinion, to know that they can do what we're getting ready to show you. And I don't think anyone in the history of the world has ever captured anything like this. So that's why I'm putting up this warning. So if you're a little squeamish, if you've been kind of like, man, where's he going with this? I just suggest cutting it off and just coming back, when the sun's up or when someone's with you, and you can watch this next part. But this is going to be the last images I think we have of tonight. Um, so, anyways, that being said, moving on. So we go back and we find this image here. Now, these are two images together. The one on the left is how he looks just before he takes another step. That would be the image on the right. And right there, he gets a tug on his shirt. Let me highlight it for you. You can see that his shirt's been tugged backwards, but that's not where the attack takes place. We think at that moment, that's when this entity or entities were able to pinpoint his location. You know what I mean? It's almost like putting a laser dot on your target before you squeeze off around, right? You don't squeeze off around and then put the laser on your target. No, you put the laser on your target and then you squeeze off around. In this fourth dimension, this is what we think they do. We've never seen it. It was always a theory of ours. We've had a lot of theories, and our theories was they put the target on you. Once they know where you are, then they can track you. Some of the good ones can. I mean, these apparitions in this basement would be the equivalent to a Michael Jordan in our third dimension. To be able to do this, because it's just so rare, it just doesn't happen. But it happened there. So here's some side by sides. What you see on the left are, it looks like up to like 10 fingers. And if you see this big finger here, it looks like it has like damage on the finger, like the top of the finger might have been, injured. If you look at the scars on the right, you can't see it that clearly, but his scars actually had that same like injury to that finger. So it's almost like when they touch you to scratch you, it's almost like the fingers actually melt down into your skin and leaves the same pattern that those fingers look like on your skin. We've never seen anything like it. So that's the right side. Check out the left side. This is how we captured it on the right when it occurred, when he was walking down the hall right before he doubled over. Now look at the pattern on the left. This guy did not fake this. This is 100% real, 100% authentic. That is amazing. So the Iroquois Technology hits these things and picks up on it. We're still amazed because we never know what we're going to see. And what's interesting is I was thinking about it. I said, man, why are we seeing all of these images that my organization's never seen before? And then I thought about it. I'm like, man, when we were doing our research for all these years, we only flew back to Maryland where we did our research, once a year or maybe twice a year just to do our research. And that was it. And we would do it just in like within, 25 minutes and we'd be out. That was it. And then we would use that footage and we would analyze it for the rest of the year. And then when we start working with the programs like, Travel and Haunted Saginaw, they only gave us, a very small portion of film to work with. That's all the Iroquois Technology needed. It wasn't their fault. We told them we don't need a lot because that's the way we did our research. But now that we have our own channel, and now that we're running full investigations through with people in this environment, we're seeing things that that we've never seen at these levels. Because when we did our research for CPI, I wouldn't let the guys get out of the car. We had to film everything from the car. We weren't allowed to disturb the environment of nature at all. People always wanted to get out. I said, no, we're not disturbing them. We're only here to research. And that's, as scientists, that's what we did for all of those years. And we still do that when we go to those locations. Doing film and TV, I'm involved in it because that's just my job that I'm hired for to do it. But for CPI, we don't disturb the environment at all. And so at least we're still limited overall to what our research does. But yeah, man, these guys had a heck of a time here, or at least Corey did. So that's amazing. So anyway, so they end up getting out of there, and he's in a lot of pain after that. And then they get outside, and they're just so happy to be out of that place. I don't know if they were supposed to stay all night or not, but they definitely didn't. So this guy here, I think his name was Evan. He has a piece of equipment that he bought. I think he was responsible for that all the pink footage that we saw. I feel sorry for him because that equipment doesn't work. At least it doesn't work to the level that it should, in my opinion, because this we had so many hits with the Iroquois technology that we had to end up shutting it off, and we didn't turn it back on until we went down into the basement. And we're using, footage that's downloaded from YouTube. He's actually using raw video footage, and as far as I know, he didn't get anything. So he's going to have to go back to the drawing board with that. So, but anyways, so that's our show. That was our fifth show. Thanks so much. I know this is a long episode. We had a lot to talk about, a lot to show you. Definitely keep tuning in because, as far as we know, we're still learning as we go with all of this, and we are getting some unbelievable images that's out there in the world. And as you can tell, no episode is alike. So I don't know if we're ever going to duplicate an episode where you're going to be like, that was just like last week's. I don't know. As far as we can tell, everything is brand new every time we do it. So definitely keep tuning in, subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. We're still working toward our 1,000 subscribers. We need that to move to the next level for our channel, and so our channel stays around. So if you guys like it, definitely start liking and leave us and ask questions. We love to answer questions here. Okay, it helps us do everything we're doing here on YouTube. So we're out. Have a good day. Ciao.